shows itself.
Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen for PS4. Dragon's Dogma is an open world party RPG similar to Dragon Age. So Dragon's Dogma was originally released on the PS3, and then an expansion pack, Dark Arisen, was released later to add in things like a new area, some new quests, and fast travel. Fast travel wasn't even available in the original. So Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen for the PS4 is the complete package of Dragon's Dogma. So some unique things for Dragon's Dogma is the pawn system. So this is how you flesh out your party. You have your own character who's custom created, and then you have a pawn, which is also custom created, so you can make your own unique secondary party member who stays with you for the whole game, and then you flesh out the rest of your party with other users' pawns or game-generated pawns to kind of fill in the gaps. So if you're missing a mage, you can see if someone on your friends list has a mage and you'll take their mage, which is a cool idea. It basically means you can sort of custom create your entire party. You're not saddled with developer created party members or things like that. Additionally, the combat is action based, meaning it's not simulated dice rolls like something like Neverwinter Nights or something like Dragon Age would use, where the game decides that you've randomly missed your opponent even though you're standing less than a foot away from them. If you miss in Dragon's Dogma, it's because you actually missed. So those are good things, but one place where it falls down is in those two good things. So the pawn system, while you can create your own party, the party has no personality. They're not characters really, they're just sort of puppets. And it's part of the in-game universe in that they have no will of their own, they just sort of do whatever you tell them to do. So the pawn system doesn't really go far enough. If you're going to be able to make your own party members, you really should be able to give them a personality or give them a backstory or something, something to set them apart, because otherwise you're sort of just playing with dolls. Additionally, the guest pawns don't level up with your party, so you're going to be constantly swapping them in and out, which means you never really grow attached to them. Combat, while action-based, and that's definitely a plus, it's missing a lot of key features. There's no lock-on, or rather there's a soft lock-on that's so soft it may as well not be there, and certain key combat features like blocking and dodging are locked into particular classes. Like only the rogue has a dodge roll, and even then you have to buy it. It's a specific ability. Only the sword and shield guy has a shield. He's the only one who's allowed block and things like that. So it's missing a lot of things that does kind of make combat a bit frustrating. You combine that with lock-on and sort of long wind-ups and abilities, and you tend to miss a lot. It gets fairly frustrating, and the last thing that kind of put the nail in the coffin for me is there's no story. This dragon shows up right at the start in your fishing village, eats your heart, and only your heart, somehow. It's a good move. You don't die, for some reason, and that's it. Off you go. Go follow some waypoints for some reason. There's never any clear reason why you're doing anything, and maybe I haven't given it enough time. I'm about 6-7 hours into the game and there's still no hook. I don't know why I'm doing things. You combine that with a party that has no personality, you combine that with a main character who's the kind of Eastern mute type who doesn't speak, and there's just nothing there. The combat's a little too frustrating, and the pawn system, while a good idea, they don't go far enough with it. There are better versions of this game out there. They're called The Witcher 3, they're called Dragon Age, and so on. So I would say go after them rather than go after Dragon's Dogma. Battle Chasers Nightwar, developed by Airship Syndicate and published by THQ Nordic. Nightwar is an old school JRPG with kind of a westernized anime aesthetic. The art designer is Joe Madureira, I'm entirely sure how to pronounce his name. If you're not familiar with him from his comic book work, you might be familiar with him in his video game work. He was the art designer for the Darksiders series. So Nightwar was a crowdfunded game, and it's based on the Battle Chasers comic book series. It's fairly old and fairly short run comic book series, also by Joe Mad. This isn't quite continuing on the story of the comic. This is kind of a in-between type deal. But you don't really need to know anything about that. It does a fairly good job of catching you up right at the start of the game. So the game plays like a kind of old school JRPG. Its combat system is turn-based. I'd say it's a lot closer to Final Fantasy X's turn-based system. It's conditional turn-based system as opposed to the more traditional ones, in that certain status ailments will push you further down the queue and things like that. Some changes it makes to the system is that it uses an overcharge resource. Overcharge is used in place of your mana, in place of your MP to use your abilities. But the wrinkle is that you have to generate it during combat. It's not something you come into combat with. So you'll spend the first couple of rounds of combat just building up your overcharge and weathering your opponent's attacks to then use your overcharge later for your bigger abilities, and in that case you won't use up your mana pool in case you need it later on for like a boss fight or something like that. Or alternatively, you can just not bother with the overcharge thing and just straight up use your mana and then use elixirs and things like that to just buff yourself later on. It's a good trade-off in that the overcharge abilities, if you use an ability with overcharge rather than mana, they have certain different effects. So if you feel like you can take these opponents' first couple of attacks and just build up your overcharge, you can, do some fairly devastating attacks later in the fight rather than trying to, come out with a big, powerful move right at the start. It's a good and interesting mechanic. I quite like it. It's a lot of fun to play around with. It does make fights take a little bit longer, but that's fine. The combat system is a lot of fun anyway. The character is a lot of fun to play with. So other than it being like an old sort of turn-based JRPG, at a really, really good one with a really nice, the overcharge system I think adds a lot of extra strategy to the game. One thing I'm not particularly happy about is that it's using a randomized loot system. Now, I don't really have a problem with randomized loot in and of itself. My problem tends to be that they tend to be not very generous, in that they drop very rarely and the stuff you get tends to not be very good. If you mirror that with something like Diablo 3, which is extremely generous in its loot dropping, it's dropping loot all over the place. Something like Neo as well does the same thing. You get a lot of loot, and you get a lot of loot that you don't like, sure, but you're still getting stuff that you can use fairly quickly, even if you are getting a lot of trash. Whereas if you have something that's not very generous, you're banking on this thing being really good, and it turns out to not be very good, and you just get very frustrated. One other problem I have with the game is its pacing. Midway through the game, you'll find that when you complete a dungeon, you are not at a high enough level to tackle the next dungeon. So you'll find yourself going back to previous dungeons and grinding through them to get back up to that level. And I just think it's something they could have worked on to just maybe make the XP rewards a bit better so that you're not having to grind previous dungeons so much. But again, the combat system is a lot of fun. That's not really that big a problem. And again, because of the randomized loot drop, you're probably going to be grinding dungeons anyway, just to get some decent equipment. Overall, I think it's a really good game. And I mean, I really like turn-based JRPGs anyway, so maybe I'm a bit biased on that. I like the characters, I like the art design, I like the combat systems. There's a lot there for me to like, and I can kind of brush off the loot because you're going to be grinding anyway. I really like it. I really think you should take a look at it. I'm going to keep playing it.
All our songs were about it. A magical place of life without end. A palace of untold wonders. But only for the worthy.
This is Echo, developed by Ultra. So Ultra, they Ultra twice, I guess. Anyway, I'm not sure who published this either. You'll have to look that one up. So in Echo, you play the character N, who has arrived at this kind of mythical palace in space that has mysterious powers and mysterious abilities, and you're trying to bring somebody back to life, and it's honestly not that important. The performances from the two main characters are really good, and it is actually quite engaging, but you're not really playing Echo for its story. You're playing Echo because of what it's attempting to do in the AI space, on a technical space, and in a lot of ways the game sort of feels like a tech demo. But it's a good tech demo. So here's the concept. When you get into the palace runs on two stages, is how I'm going to explain it. They have a lights on stage, and they have a lights off stage, as the palace cycles power. while the lights are on, the palace is monitoring you. It's monitoring what abilities you're using. So if you're crouching a lot, if you're running a lot, if you're vaulting over objects, if you're choking out enemy guards, if you're shooting the enemy guards and so on, it will record those things and take into account the things you are doing. When the lights are off, it is not monitoring you. The next time the lights come on, the enemy guards will now have whatever abilities you were using the last time. So let's say they start out and the only thing they can do is walk. If you are shooting all the time, we'll say, in the first lights on section, the next lights on section, they will be able to shoot now. If you're sprinting, they'll be able to sprint. If you're able to open doors, now they can open doors, and things like that. There's a really interesting way it sets it up in that you walk into an area where there's a lot of water on the ground, and the echoes, as they're called, that's where the name of the game comes from, don't walk on the water because they've never seen you walk on the water, so they don't know they can do that. Or rather, the palace hasn't told them they can do that. So you're going, haha, I can walk on the water and you guys can't. And then the lights turn off, and then the lights turn back on, and now they can walk on the water. And you're like, oh shit, I gotta get the hell out of here now. And now you're sprinting away, and now it's recording that you're sprinting. And now in the next cycle, okay, now they can sprint. Shit. Oh shit. I've really screwed myself over here. So there's a real incentive for you to kind of do as little as possible to get through the area. Or at the very least, plan ahead and remember what you did last time, because they can do it now this time. But there's a good way, and here's a good wrinkle on how you reset them. Basically, if they've learned how to walk on water, or walk in the water, rather, they don't have that, they're not quite that powerful. If you avoid using the water in another lights on section, the next time the lights come back on, they'll have forgotten how to walk in the water this time. So that's sort of how you reset them. If you avoid using certain abilities, they'll stop using those abilities. It's a really good setup and a really good technical idea. And it works really well right at the start, but I think the game might go on a little too long in that you're sort of doing the same things over and over again, and the areas are kind of samey. They do vary them up a little bit, but they're still, the aesthetic doesn't really change all that much. I think with a couple of varied areas and maybe a few more abilities for your main character, this could really sing. But it's a really good idea, and I really think you should give it a shot. I think it works really well, and I'd be very interested to see if they can, you know, improve upon this, or maybe add it to another game series or something like that. It's a really good idea, and it's a really nice change in the kind of AI for enemy guards and things like that.
I feel like shit.
Of course you do. Your wound has healed. The pain is from the stasis and will pass within a week. The nausea will linger, probably intensify when you start to realize that more than 100 years have passed.
It's Assassin's Creed Oranges, published and developed by Ubisoft and their many studios. So I've just come off a fairly frustrating game session for Assassin's Creed Origins, so before I get into that, I will point out the things that I'm enjoying about the game. I am enjoying the game overall. I'm liking the story, I really like the setting, I really like the characters. The core formula of Assassin's Creed is still there, the kind of infiltrate, assassinate, exfiltrate, I guess, loop of gameplay that they've had since the very first Assassin's Creed is still there. It's still fun. It was fun the first time, it's still fun now. So overall, I enjoy the game. I keep reminding myself that yes, Derek, you do enjoy this game, even when it gets very frustrating. I will now go through the frustrating part, and I will illustrate that with this, just explaining the last gameplay session I had, because it hit upon pretty much every single thing that I'm not liking about the game. So the mission was, I have to get into this compound, I have to rescue some dude, and then get him out of there. This is a fairly typical side mission. Just go in and rescue somebody. I tend to play stealthy. That's the way I like to play. That's the way I played the first Assassin's Creed all the way up to Black Flag before I stopped playing Assassin's Creed anymore. So I stealthed my way in. I encountered this big, huge guard who's in the way of this guy I have to rescue. And I go, okay, I'll just assassinate him with my hidden blade, like you do, normally. Only, no, you're not allowed to do that to this guy. He's a special type of enemy that you can only stealth attack. You can't assassinate him, despite this game being called Assassin's Creed, despite every other game allowing me to do this. For some reason, can't do it to this guy. He's a lower level than me, I really should be able to, but no, can't do that. Fine, I'll sit here and wait for him to walk around, which is fine. It's not, but whatever. I'll wait. Okay, I go past him, he didn't see me, great, I'm still stealthing. Get up to the gate, or get up to the prisoner. I will now unlock the door. I am not allowed to unlock the door. Despite other side missions allowing me to unlock this door, I'm not allowed to unlock this one. I have to go find the key. Fine, I'll go find the key. It gives me an opportunity to be more stealthy. Fine. I'll do that. I'm not happy about it, but whatever. More stealthy gameplay. Fine, I enjoy that. I find the key, I find the guy with the key. I get him alone. I do that cool jump off the wall, stab him with the hidden blade thing that everybody loves about Assassin's Creed. And I get the key, and now I'm stealthing my way back. Go past the big huge guard that I'm not allowed to kill for reasons. Unlock the door. Fine. Now you're free. Now, I will paraphrase what Bayek says because I don't remember the exact quote, but it was, "This area is still dangerous. Stick with me and we'll get out of here." Guy does not stick with me. Guy runs off into the compound, is spotted by everybody because you know, I stealthed my way in and didn't kill anybody other than the guy with the key. Ally health is low. That's the message I get on the screen. Now, luckily, the game designer is smart enough to know that escort missions where the escort dies are super duper frustrating. So they don't die. They just fall down and are unconscious. They will not wake up again until the area is safe. So if there are still guards around, guess what? You gotta go kill all those guards now. And also, guess what? They saw you, somehow. Don't know how, but they saw me. So I'm not allowed to stealth them. Now I gotta fight them. I gotta use Origin's new combat system. The combat system in Assassin's Creed is not good. It's never been good. It's either mash, 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 or time your counters. That's basically been how it was in the past. It hasn't really changed. They've been going out of their way to kind of show this new combat system, but it does play a bit more like Zelda and less like Dynasty Warriors. But it's still very frustrating to play, because if you have more than one, more than two opponents, you're not winning that fight. They don't take the concession that if enemies are off screen, they shouldn't be attacking you. If there's an archer from miles across the map, their aim should not be as good as it is. They're the concessions you make as a developer to make combat more fun. The entire compound is now attacking me. It's like 15 enemies. Frame rate has, dipped considerably because there's so many enemies attacking me now. I'm also encountering an enemy type, enemies that have tower shields. You have to have a specific ability to fight them, and if you don't have it, you aren't going to win that fight. So, no surprise, I died. So now I have to wonder, okay, at what stage of the mission has the game left me at? So it's left me at the part where the guy has escaped, or I've let him out of his cell, but the game has teleported me outside of the compound. So, no surprise, he gets spotted again, ally health is low, now I gotta go in and rescue him. You can repeat this 4 or 5 times because I died every single time. It's too many enemies, frame rate had dropped too low. Bayek was not responsive enough for me to avoid any attacks. Somehow, randomly, on the 6th or 7th go, my escort gets out of the compound without being killed. I don't know how. Maybe I had managed to kill enough guards in all those different attempts that he manages to get out without being knocked unconscious. That was not a fun mission. And that's not the first time that has happened, where I have stealthed in to rescue somebody and they just wake up the whole compound. Now luckily that's a side mission, and there are tons and tons of side missions that if you encounter one that you don't like, just leave it. The main missions are really good, there's a lot of spectacle to them, they're a lot of fun. The side missions are not. Ignore them. Unless you absolutely have to do them to get your level up for the next main mission. As soon as you're at the right level, just do the main mission. That's my advice. Yes, Derek, you are enjoying Assassin's Creed, you are, I promise. Even with its random loot drops that you hate, but you're still enjoying it, I promise.
Sleep. I never sleep. I just wait in the shadows, and I will kill you all. Everyone who sniffed the air that day in Siwa!
Those were some of the games I played of October 2017. Sorry it's a bit late this month. I'm going to be a bit late next month as well, since I'll be away at the end of November. But coming up in November's video, I was hoping that Ni no Kuni and The Inpatient would both be out this month, but they've both been set back to next year. So yeah, You still have a hidden agenda, which I'm quite looking forward to. But other than that, I can't actually think of anything, so it might be a short video next month, I don't know. I may just give some late game thoughts on Assassin's Creed or Battle Chasers or something like that instead. Unless there's something I'm missing. If there is, let me know in the comments, or let me know about this video. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.